Hey everyone, this is the final episode of this series. We have our book, we have our story, and all we have left to do is read it. So without further ado, let's read Lady J's Locket. A Thorn Story.
One night, when the moon was bright, its light piercing through the clouds, a moonbeam touched the ground, and in the place the moonbeam touched, a small glimmer remained. Shimmer, shimmer, flicker, flicker, and in the middle, a small figure. As the glimmer faded to the night's darkness, the figure stretched one arm, then the other, fluttered their wings, and wiggled their tail. They glanced into the darkness shrewdly, where a shimmery, shadowy figure formed. It was as much a shadow as it was a glow. The ghostly figure floated towards the tailed one, her hand outstretched, and her hair and garments seemed to flow around her in an otherworldly breeze. And in her hand yet another shimmer, a trinket. The tailed one glimpsed at the trinket, then at the woman. "Are you the one who summoned me, then?" The woman lifted the trinket closer. It was a locket of some kind. "Return," she said, her voice soft and wispy like her form. "Return where? Return what?" asked the tail fay, confused. "Return." She presented the locket again. "Return this? To whom? Whose is it?" "Return," she said again, and there was such longing in her voice and eyes that the fay sighed and reached out a hand. All right, I'll return it." She placed the locket in his hand and smiled, and before he could ask anything else, she was gone. "Well, that was informative," muttered the tailed fairy. He looked at the locket in his hand. "Guess you're my main clue," he murmured, and opened it. "To my beloved Elijah, yours always, J." After examining the locket, the tailed one looked up and finally noticed his surroundings. He was in a graveyard. Weathered tombstones stood all around him, the moonlight gleaming on their cracked surface. Before him, where the spirit stood before, was a large but simple-looking headstone. Jane Hallow, beloved sister, gone before her time, 1887-1906. "You're Jay, then," whispered the fairy, crouching before the grave, and he noticed a small wiggle. "Why, hello there, Mr. Worm. How are you this night?" The worm wiggled some more. "Fine, fine. And who might you be?" The fairy pulled out a card and laid it near the worm. "I'm Thorn, Fay Detective, at your service." He nodded to the worm, who was now wiggling excitedly around the card. "Oh, that's nice. Quality paper and all. Delicious. Thanks," Thorn said, trying not to laugh. "Say, Mr. Worm, do you know anything about the lady in this tomb?" "Lady Jane." The worm's voice was muffled from eating the card. Sure. Real pretty she was, they say. And delicious, too. My grandfather said so. Or was it grandfather? Can get confusing, you know." Right, of course, nodded Thorn politely, trying not to think about the question of Lady J's taste.
Don't know much, really. Bit before my time,
continued the worm.
But ask the oak. He's an old one, he is. He might remember.
Thorn looked up. An old oak was standing nearby, his trunk wide, his branches tall. He flew up to the tree. "Good evening, Mr. Oak. Could I bother you with a question or two?" The old tree harumphed a little and let the wind ruffle its leaves.
"Questions?"
Oak sounded thoughtful.
"Why not?
It's a lovely night, and you look like a polite little fairy. Some conversation could be nice."
"Thank you, kind sir."
Thorn bowed his head gracefully. "I was summoned here, you see, by Jane Hallow, but she couldn't tell me much. Speaking is hard for the dead. Do you remember anything about her?"
Lady Jane? Of course, of course. Very famous her story. Very sad. I was but a wee sapling then, but I remember her. Lady Jane, she died very young. They say from sadness. Broken heart, you see. She loved this boy, and he left. Went off for a job or something. Never heard from him again. And after a while she just stopped. Gone she was.
"That is very sad," agreed Thorn. "The boy, was his name Elijah by any chance?"
"Oh, yes, that was it. Elijah Jones he was. No one spoke much of him till she died. Scrawny little thing, but kind he was. When Jane died, a lot of people blamed Elijah, said he was no good. But there were rumors. See, he just disappeared, never got on the boat he was meant to, and no one heard nothing from him. Some said maybe he died too."
Thorn cocked his head and smiled at the old oak. "Those sound like human rumors. What do the trees say?" Oak laughed. It sounded like the ruffle of leaves and the creaks of branches.
"Clever little things, aren't you? No wonder you're a detective."
Thorn bowed, making a bit of a show of it, then looked at the tree expectantly. The oak humphed and humphed a bit, but finally said,
"We don't usually share with non-trees, but you're fey. Your people grow old like us, were our friends before the departure. And we liked Jane and Elijah. They often walked among us, sat beneath our canopies, and never carved their names into our bark. As if we need carvings to remember."
Oak seemed to sigh.
"Elijah, he is in the forest. I do not know the details, but he lies there still. Never left. Shame, shame."
The old tree went quiet for a while, lost in thought, then seemed to straighten up a bit.
"You go and ask the forest trees. Say the graveyard oak sent you,"
he said with deep pride. Thorn thanked him. "I'll come back," he promised, "to tell you how the story ends."
"That will be much appreciated,"
rumbled the oak, and rustled his leaves goodbye after the small flying figure. And Thorn flew into the forest and asked the trees. But most of them were birch trees, and even the oldest ones could not remember Elijah or Jane. "Go to the center of the forest," one said. "There is a clearing there, where the oldest of us died many years ago. There is something in the ground there that won't allow anything to grow." Thorn thanked the birch and quickly flew deep into the forest. There he found the clearing. It was an odd sight. There were no bushes or grass, just soil, surrounding the remains of a great birch tree, long ago fallen to decay. Even the shape of the clearing was odd, like a long, wrangling thing. Thorn flew high above the trees and looked down. "Elijah," he murmured, "what happened to you?" From high above, the soil of the clearing glared at him, twisting limbs of a fallen man, marking the place Elijah lay, but did not rest. Quickly, swiftly, Thorn flew back down. He touched the bark of the old birch and could feel the anger still coursing through it. The soil was the same. Like poison, the anger slithered and spread from this spot, chasing away life. "Elijah," Thorn spoke quietly, "will you tell me your story?" There was an angry rumble. Not words, only snarls and growls. But Thorn understood the complaint.
"I'm dead! How can I tell you anything?"
"I'm a good listener," smiled the Fae, "even for the dead. Come speak to me. I will hear you." There was a pause, a silence, and then there was a figure. Years of anger and hate changed him. Elongated limbs, stretched and darkened features, unnaturally bright splatters, seemingly still dripping from the side of the head, from the long, sharpened, twisted fingers. But Thorn could see Elijah under the fiendish form. The Fae settled himself on the ground before the angry spirit and looked at him expectantly with an encouraging little smile, as if saying, "Go ahead, I'm listening." The spirit seemed taken aback by Thorn's nonchalance. He growled menacingly.
"I was murdered,
He hissed.
beaten and put to the ground before I even drew my last breath. The taste of soil still fills my mouth, stained with my own blood."
"Who did this to you?" Thorn asked in a low voice.
"I know not."
Elijah's tortured spirit moaned.
Strong he was, but I never saw his face. But I will find out. I will have vengeance, if not him, then anyone, everyone.
"Even Jane?"
Jane.
The spirit quivered with the name, and the blank eyes filled with sorrow.
Jane. She must have thought I left her and moved on, found another.
"No," Thorn said softly. "She knew." He took out the locket and held it out to Elijah. "She gave you this, yes? She asked me to return it to you." Gnarly, sharp-nailed fingers reached out toward the locket.
"How?" "It was with me under the earth."
The other deformed hand touched the decimated chest, searching for the locket. "She didn't say. I'm not sure how she got it. But she knew, Elijah, that you didn't abandon her. I think she tried to join you."
"Join?"
The spirit cocked its head, an odd movement for such a gruesome figure. "She died not long after you, from what I could gather. She called me here to return this to you. She's waiting for you."
"Waiting for me? Jane is."
For a moment the anger and hate diminished, revealing the features of a pale young man. His large eyes looked longingly at the locket, But in a horrible screech, shadows erupted around him, engulfing Elijah in the darkness again.
I was taken, lost. I will find who did this to me. I will be avenged.
He is long gone, Thorn said calmly, unperturbed before the raging form. It's been over a century. Your murderer is dead. And what of Jane? Will you abandon her now? The spirit breathed, the voice both hollow and full of sadness.
I want justice.
Thorn sighed. I understand, he said sadly. I do. But is this justice? He gestured to the barren ground and the decaying birch. The soil and trees are your witnesses, not your assailant, yet you punish them. He could see the rage accumulating in the ghost, and raised his palms. I do not blame you, only state what I see. I cannot punish the dead, but I can find out who killed you, and make it known among humans too, so no one would believe you abandoned Jane any longer. Take the locket. He offered the silvery jewel to the slowly appearing Elijah. Go to her so you can find peace together. I will find the truth. You have my word. The hand that took the locket had delicate-looking fingers, pale and long, but naturally so. Thorn looked into the large eyes that seemed to regain some of the brown as the pale hand took the locket. As the first light of dawn touched the graveyard grounds, a pair of figures walked it. Dim and continuously fading, the two walked into the forest they loved, hand in hand. As they reached the clearing, a ray of early sunlight touched the ground they stood, and when they faded completely, a green sprout stretched out of the soil and greeted the new morning. Thorn and Oak greeted the same morning together, watching Jane and Elijah step into the forest. Oak sniffled a bit and gave the Fae, currently seated on his branch, swinging his legs cheerfully, a serious look.
I believe you have work to do, little one.
Thorn returned a cheeky smile. That I do.
Hello again, it's me. If you stayed to this point of the video, I'm guessing you like the story, which makes me super duper happy. And, I'd appreciate if you click the like and subscribe. Maybe leave a comment just to let YouTube know as well that you like it. And I also wanted to invite you to my Patreon. That's where this story was originally published. And I just started working on some friends for Thorn, and I think it's going to be really cool. So if you want to hear more about it, check my Patreon page. And thank you so much for joining me. I'll see you soon. Bye for now.